Welcome, everybody. There's Paul Golan, our executive director. That was Rabbi Miriam Jerris, the two or three of you who don't know her. Who does not know? No. If any one person personifies and embodies the movement we call Humanistic Judaism, and more particularly embodies the Society for Humanistic Judaism, it is Rabbi Miriam Jerris, the rock of SHJ. And as I say, my name is Richard Logan. If you're wondering about Humanistic Judaism having upside potential as far as bringing new people into the movement, I'm the son of a friggin' Methodist minister and the grandson of another Methodist minister and the great-great-great-grandson, add a couple more greats, the Deacon Roger Shepherd from the 1600s in Massachusetts. So, but seriously, welcome, a very, very warm welcome to all of you to this extraordinary weekend put together by the hard work of some really talented and dedicated people. We have some very special guests here. I'd like to introduce you right now to some of them. Just turn around and say hi to the people at the table you're sitting at. Okay. So we're here, but there are some additional special guests that you will be introduced to very shortly. We're here celebrating 50 remarkable years. We're here celebrating 50 remarkable years, but it's really about the future and about building for the future. This is a platform for moving forward from here to 50 years of greater and greater accomplishment. The world is full of people that we are very, very well suited to serve, the many thousands of secular Jews and intermarried couples and so on in the world. And of course, we want to keep Jewish culture alive and vital. And there are a number of other things that we'll be talking about over the course of this weekend. By the way, I want to bring personal greetings to this wonderful gathering from a wonderful couple, Lou and Ellie Altman, who would be there if they could. As many of you know, Lou was president of SHJ for six very wonderful years. If I could just make a couple of announcements. If you're going to be posting anything online on Twitter or Instagram, Facebook, be sure to use the hashtag SHJ@50, hashtag symbol SHJAT50. So people who might be interested, your friends can see what you're posting, or people interested in hunting, searching for that can find it. If you have any questions about anything logistical or where anything is or where something is happening, look for people who are wearing this. This is a sign of people with deep and abiding knowledge about things. However, if you have questions about the meaning of life, please ask Rabbi Miriam Jerris. So I'd like to invite Miriam again, and Vice President Mary Raskin, who also chaired the task force that put all of this together, and our wonderful Executive Director, Paul Golan. I'd like to invite you up here so we can begin the ceremonies for the night. Notice how she kept me from falling off the stage.
I know.
This is a test.
Yeah, the miracle of... Who has a lighter or match? Could we get some matches? Okay. The cartridge is one else.
Someone has a lighter.
Somebody has to have a lighter. We realize that they're completely politically incorrect, but somebody has to have a lighter. This is Mike, everybody. Big hand for Mike.
I want to tell a story. I decided to visit. It's about this. It's about this. I visited the Boston congregation to see what they did. They had an assemblage like this. They had candles. It was a Friday night. Nobody had a match. And then the young music director got up at the front to the microphone and said, "Where is my light? My light is within me."
Here's our light.
Here's our light. And the extemporaneous speaker was Kerry Shaw. Did he get the groan he deserved? Okay, good. Okay.
Okay, I'm up again. Where's my stool? That's what I just said. So this, no voice. So this started the festivities right there. There's the official lighting of the 50th anniversary. So thank you, Richard. And welcome, dear friends, to SHJ at 50, the 50th anniversary of the Society for Humanistic Judaism. So my joyful task this evening is to give us a glimpse back in time to how Humanistic Judaism got its start. So just shy of 60 years ago, a group of Jewish families from Windsor, Ontario, Canada, consulted with the leadership of Reformed Temple Bethel in Metro Detroit, and soon after that, Temple Bethel Windsor was born. So my family was among those founders. And Rabbi Sherwin Wine, a young charismatic Reform rabbi, became our rabbi. And at that point, he became my rabbi. He was there at my bat mitzvah, my confirmation, my weddings, both of them, my children's baby namings, their bar mitzvahs, their confirmations, and the wedding of my daughter Allison to Adam. He presided over my brother's funeral, my grandmother's funeral, and sat in the front row at my mother's funeral because he said, "I've trained you, it's time for you to do this." So Humanistic Judaism is important to all of us here, to a greater or a lesser degree. But for me, Sherwin Wine and Humanistic Judaism is deeply ingrained. It is the center of my ethical core and my heart. Every religion, every organization, and every relationship has an origin story. And the Birmingham Temple Humanistic Judaism, and the Society for Humanistic Judaism is no exception. As we all know, some origin stories are mythical, some factual, but of mythical proportions, and some are just stories. According to the book Atheism for Dummies, and as the story goes, Sherwin Wine stood before his Windsor, Ontario Reformed congregation during a Saturday morning Shabbat, and he declared his atheism and his intention to organize a humanistic Jewish congregation in Metro Detroit with a small group of families from that Windsor congregation. Well, that's cool, but it wasn't true. I know it isn't true because 1, I was there. 2, Temple Bethel Windsor never had Saturday morning Shabbat services. And the Birmingham Temple began as a small R Reform congregation with a number of young families from Temple Bethel, Detroit, who were seeking a suburban congregation. As we all know by now, Sherwin Wine had his own ideas about what this new congregation would be. You can read the rest of the story. It's written in a primary source document, which is available to you this weekend free of charge. Thank you to the International Institute. It is in the book Life of Courage, and it was written in honor of Sherwin Wine's 65th birthday. But I want to share 2 early highlights. And these 2 things led directly to the formation of the society. The first was a Detroit Free Press article, which is our daily newspaper. It was dated December 3rd, 1964. Headline, Suburban Rabbi, I am an atheist. December 3rd, 1964. It was then that Sherwin introduced the term agnostic. And I'm quoting him. He said, when someone speaks of God, I answer, I don't know what you mean, and I cannot determine whether your statement is true or false. That is agnosticism. And although Rabbi Wine used that term throughout his life, it didn't have the staying power or obviously the same sensationalism as the term atheist. The second highlight was when Time magazine on January 29th, 1965, wrote a 1-page article entitled The Atheist Rabbi. He was not on the cover. That too was part of the mythology. But the article addressed the voices of a few other rabbis in this area who were threatening to defrock him. The Reform movement did not then or now kick rabbis out of the rabbinate if they did not believe in God. Now, he may have been the most vocal Reform rabbi talking about atheism and getting press, but he wasn't the only rabbi who held this position. And at about the very same time, there was Rabbi Daniel Friedman talking about rational Judaism at Congregation Beth Or in Deerfield, Illinois. But after the news stories, people from all over the world wrote to the Birmingham Temple, asking about congregations in their area. It was ultimately decided to create an umbrella organization to respond to these queries. Corporation papers establishing the Society for Humanistic Judaism were filed at the state of Michigan in July 1969. The first conference was held at a suburban Detroit hotel, Stouffer's, the first weekend of May 1970. Rabbi Sherwin Wine of the Birmingham Temple, Rabbi Daniel Friedman of Congregation Beth Or, and members of the Westport, Connecticut congregation, including founders John and Jean Franklin, came together for the first time to begin building the connections that form the foundations of today's organization. 25 affiliated communities and hundreds of independent individual members in the United States, Canada, and throughout the world. In 1982, I became the first executive director of the society. I fought for that title. Believe me, there was a very strong, primarily male contingent maintaining that the title should be executive secretary. Eventually, I convinced the board that given the salary that they were offering, the least they could do was give me a title. So I spent those early days traveling, first with Sherwin and then alone, helping communities develop throughout North America. I look out today and I see so many of you where I visited in the early 80s, all up and down the eastern seaboard, the western coasts. It was quite a time. Well, 13 years later, I returned to graduate school to pursue my lifelong dream to become a rabbi. And I was followed as executive director by the extraordinarily dedicated and capable Bonnie Cousins, who became the executive director for 20 years. Now, we were always a very small staff. We are all in this room right now. And we always relied on talented and committed volunteer community, which we nurtured and we valued and we appreciated every single person who contributed, and we still do. Well, in those days, we used to say, there are no humanistic Jewish emergencies. And that was true, until one Sunday morning in July 2007, we received the devastating news that our charismatic founder and leader, Rabbi Sherwin Wine, had been killed in a car crash in Morocco. Sherwin was, in many ways, indescribable, but I'm going to describe him anyways. He was brilliant, creative, tireless, visionary, and driven, and had a most delicious sense of humor. He was one of the most eloquent speakers of his generation. No notes except whatever he wrote on a 4x6 card. Sherwin also had a way of recruiting people. He would look at you intently with those dark eyes and say, I need you to do this. How many of us in this room were the recipients of that? Well, we didn't dare say no. But he built us up and he made us shine. And that is how the movement grew. When he died, people asked, who will replace him? And Rabbi Adam Shalom offered, none of us and all of us. My response was, Sherwin taught us how to be leaders, and he taught us what to do, and he did. In the early days, Rabbi Wine led his congregation through the steps of creating an entirely new liturgical system. He recognized the attachments that individuals had to blessings over candles, wine, the bread, challah, as well as the prayers, the Shema, and the Kaddish in particular. But Wine also understood the value of participating in thousands of years of Jewish tradition. How does one stay rooted and connected to our heritage while making Jewish life vibrant, meaningful, and relevant for today? How do we both celebrate our roots and spread our wings? That question was significant then, and I believe we're still asking it now. But within a year, the liturgy at the Birmingham Temple was transformed. The Shema and the Kaddish and all forms of traditional prayer were dropped from the services. Rabbi Wine began to write meditations and songs, all following the commitment of saying what we believed and believing what we said. One of the first songs he wrote was like our anthem, and it was called "Where Is My Light?" Eifo Ori. We all know it. There are at least 8 different musical versions of it, but the words remain the same. The commitment to an integrity between thought and speech and action is what makes Humanistic Judaism distinctive. There were other Jewish philosophers and rabbis who shared a human-centered approach, but Sherwin Wine insisted that the language we use should follow and be consistent with the philosophy that we articulated. When a set liturgy is no longer required, the freedom to create words of profound meaning and inspiration is one of SHJ's most enriching possibilities for growth and for fulfillment. The liturgy developed over time and drew on 5 major sources. The new liturgy provided a wellspring of compelling and beautiful things for us to say and sing. So the material was derived from these 5 sources. And I know that every time I mention a source, you will be able to think of an example. The first was Jewish tradition without significant change. The second, contemporary North American Jewish or Israeli and Yiddish poetry and music, also without significant change. And the third was ancient and contemporary music, poetry, and prose adapted for consistency with Humanistic Judaism. The fourth was material from general secular culture. As Sherwin used to say, wisdom does not only exist in the Jewish world. And the fifth was new creations written specifically for Humanistic Judaism. What captivated early adherents to Humanistic Judaism still makes powerful and significant differences in the lives of cultural and secular Jews today. The philosophy endures. Shortly after Rabbi Wine died, I wrote an article entitled, "The Lessons Learned at the Foot of Mount Sherwin." So these are the lessons that I spoke about then, and they still ring loud and true today. The first was integrity. And integrity refers to that consistency between belief and word and action. We've already discussed this idea within the context of a non-theistic, human-centered liturgy. But the distinction does provide the philosophical foundation of our existence. The second lesson, we are our behavior. Observing behavior is the shortest route to discovering what people really believe. When the words that individuals speak and their behavior are not consistent, behavior is most often telling the truth. The third is believing is better than non-believing. From the very early days of Humanistic Judaism until this day, it has often been easier for people to describe us by what we don't believe, rather than the things that we affirm. It also may be more provocative for reporters to approach us that way. But Humanistic Jews believe in many things. We believe in the right to make decisions independent of a supernatural authority. We believe that we have the obligation to make this world a better and a safer place. We believe that history is a human saga. and there are more and more. The fourth lesson is I don't know is a legitimate response to a question. If we are uncertain about what is true, the default answer is not a supernatural one. We simply may not have enough information or evidence to determine what is true. Therefore, I don't know is not only the most honest response, but it may be the only rational one. Not knowing provides mystery and challenge, it really does. And if we've learned anything in the past few years, we have learned that, and this is my personal hashtag, hashtag truth matters. The fifth lesson, alphabet soup is delicious. As the Society for Humanistic Judaism and the movement grew, new organizations developed. Each organization was accompanied by a set of initials. For example, SHJ is Society for Humanistic Judaism. The IISHJ is the International Institute for Secular Humanistic Judaism. The AHR is the Association for Humanistic Rabbis. Well, we are continuing that tradition. In 2018, we added JFASD to the alphabet soup when we organized the Jews for a Secular Democracy. The sixth lesson was human dignity provides meaning for life. So answering that question, what is the meaning of life, is never an easy thing to do. It is not as difficult as it seems. If human dignity is always the measure for ethical decisions, then the support and the promotion of human dignity is a strong answer to that daunting and seemingly impossible question. Human dignity is the reason that Humanistic Judaism has always openly officiated and co-officiated at marriages of Jews to those not born Jewish. It is why all members, whether Jewish or not, are treated as equal members of our organizations. Human dignity is the reason that the LGBTQ individuals and community have always felt embraced, welcomed, and supported. Human dignity is why prospective rabbis or leaders in our movement are not required to be dating or married to a Jew. And the last lesson, the seventh, is hope is a choice. When we are faced with the death of loved ones, with senseless mass shootings on a weekly basis, with mean-spirited rhetoric, and the lack of compassion for those suffering at home and abroad, despair and depression are normal responses. Whenever life despairs of us, Rabbi Sherwin Wine told us, his poem, Hope is a Choice, reminds us that we always have a choice in how we respond to life circumstances. Wine wrote, hope is a choice, never found, never given, always taken. Some wait for hope to capture them. They act as the prisoners of despair. Others go searching for hope. They find nothing but the reflection of their own anger. Hope is an act of will, affirming in the presence of evil that good things will happen, preferring in the face of failure, self-esteem to pity. Optimists laugh, even in the dark. They know that hope is a lifestyle, not a guarantee. And of course, I forgot my prop. So the two top books underneath my phone. Thank you. So in 1988, Sherwin Wine published this book, Celebration. Every single thing written in this book was his original liturgy. Shabbat services, baby namings, weddings, high holiday services. It's all here. One thick book, one voice. Well, today we are thrilled to announce the inauguration of our new liturgy book called Here is Our Light. 22 people contributed to this book. It's all original. I told everybody I was not searching copyrights. So everything written in this book is original. So from 1 to 22. That is our legacy. And it's so visible. This may be thin, but it is powerful. And I think all of you who have registered will find one in your packet. I know people keep saying, where can I get that? I said, open your bag. So that's where you get it. So I'm not the only one with the stories. I'm so honored to be able to introduce Elise Pivnik, Rabbi Sherwin Wine's niece, and a great supporter of this movement, to talk to us about her memories of her uncle and her commitment to our movement. Elise.
Hi, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I haven't lived in Michigan for a long time, and one of the things I really miss about Michigan in this area is coming to the Birmingham Temple. It's a very special part of my growing up, and very life-shaping for me, growing up with my uncle and my parents, obviously. So I'm happy to be here to congratulate the Society for Humanistic Judaism on its 50th year anniversary, and to honor my family, Rabbi Wine, Uncle Sherwin to me, and my parents, Ben and Lorraine Pivnik, who supported Humanistic Judaism from the start. Let me get this out of the way right up front. There is a quip delivered by my father at a Humanistic Judaism anniversary event way back, and it went something like, he founded, that was my uncle, and I funded, that would be my dad. True, but Humanistic Judaism meant so much more than that quip to my dad. It gave voice to the religious doubt he had carried since childhood. He was deeply committed to the meaning and practices of Humanistic Judaism and loved being part of building this like-minded community of the Birmingham Temple and the many organizations that followed. My mom was a full supporter too. I have to say I'm really glad that my uncle chose Humanistic Judaism. He could have chose some other things, and I think she would have followed him there too. So I want to use my few minutes up here to paint a picture of what Humanistic Judaism was like in the early days. It's fun to describe myself as one of the first children of Humanistic Judaism. From the eyes of a 10-year-old, I had a close-up view of the beginning of Humanistic Judaism. And now, years later, I can put some meat on the bones of what I saw. First, I had a very advanced vocabulary for a 10-year-old. It included words like heretic and atheist. There were lots and lots of meetings and lots of time for refreshments afterwards. The founders shared a sense of purpose, and they became friends. They knew they were starting something profound, even radical, boldly moving Judaism to a new place that reflected what they really believed. There were conversations about big ideas. What to do about the word God? Is it in the service or out? Really? Can we do this? How should we honor the Torah? What about the Shema? What about the songs, the only thing we liked from the traditional services? Should we teach the biblical stories as is? What will a humanistic bar and bat mitzvah look like? What about all those Jewish sages who have a lot to teach us since the Torah was written? Should Albert Einstein, Sigmund Freud, and multiple Jewish heroes, scientists, philosophers, politicians, poets, writers, and artists, we were very successful people, also inspire us? Later, what about Darwin? I always liked that there was a Darwin Day. We celebrated the past and the present. And there was a lot of adult education. As a child, it felt like they were always out going to some kind of class. To a child, it felt like classes all the time. And I liked that we talked about the real history of the Jews. That's a phrase from my childhood. No fairy tales for us. I'm particularly proud that my uncle was one of the few rabbis to perform intermarriages in the country, not with disdain, but by welcoming the new partner into our family. How prescient was that? 50 years ago he was doing that. I have a strong memory of services when, instead of reading from the Torah, my uncle opened a book by a modern Jewish thinker, and he would read it to us, and then he would slowly close the book and place it on the shelf as if it was right here today, the shelf of the podium, giving us a few extra moments to reflect on what had been read. New music had been composed and played that contributed to the mood of the service. My uncle was a sometime poet, and our first music director, Dory Samuels, put the words to music. And I'm happiest on Yom Kippur if I can hear the Kol Nidre played on the cello and clarinet together. I remember people taking notes during my uncle's sermons. I never saw that happen at another congregation. He spoke about things that were important to our daily lives, that helped us make sense of what was going on around us in our families, our community, and the larger world. I understood this even as a youngster. Let me also add that he ran a great children's service. You can ask me later about the sermon that included a musician who played the piano with her nose. Humanistic Judaism taught me how to face our lives with courage, and that is where our dignity comes from. It is the alternative to faith. It's a lesson that gives me strength. I have fond memories of our early vagabond existence, first in Birmingham, then at Farmington Hills Elementary School, and I forget all the other places. And then we built our own home, here we are, full of clear glass windows that brought in the outdoors. So different than traditional synagogue architecture, with dark spaces and stained glass. So much for the founding group to be proud of. It's a great pleasure to look out at this group tonight. You are the future of humanistic Judaism. I hope that we will learn from each other over the course of the two-day convening, and that we will think of new ways to bring our message or our opportunity to kindred spirits who have not been yet lucky enough to know about this most fulfilling way to be Jewish.
Thank you, Elise. Lots of memories. When I was 11, Elise's older sister and I are 6 months apart. So Billy and I used to sit in the front with our feet dangling, looking up at this imposing rabbi. And the first thought I had as a little kid was, I didn't know you could laugh in temple. Well, this next part of the program is to honor all of you. 50 years years is a long time, and we have had 21 presidents of the Society for Humanistic Judaism during that time. And I would like to read the names. For those of you who are here, if you will just stand until I finish reading, and then everybody can clap. I'll begin with our first president, Bob Porras, who was a member here at the Birmingham Temple. John Franklin of beloved memory, who was the founder of Westport, Connecticut, Congregation for Humanistic Judaism. The third was Gerald Berman. The fourth, Marjorie Buxbaum from Deerfield, Illinois. Believe it or not, I was the fifth president of this organization. I was about 3. But that's how they got me, you see. First, you'll be vice president while Margie's president, and then you'll be president. James Ryder, who was here at the Birmingham Temple. Jeffrey Chesnell, who was sitting and now standing right there. Leonard Cherlin of blessed memory from New York. Lynn Master from this congregation. Robert Sandler from this congregation. Rosalind Hill from Connecticut. Dana Wolf Neymark from the congregation that Jeffrey is now representing. Rick Neymark. Dana was pregnant during her presidency, so we watched those children growing up. The 14th president was Bert Steinberg, who just died recently. He was such a force for us and such a wonderful, wonderful president. So much vision. The 15th president was Toby Dorfman from San Diego. The 16th president, I am looking at her beautiful face, Sherry Gelber from Cajal Brea. The 17th president was Phil Gould from Machar, a beloved memory. The 18th president was the man that Richard mentioned, Lou Altman, who I believe has been, next to Jeffrey, been member of more humanistic congregations than anybody. Jeffrey gets that prize. The next president, Andrea Friedlander, who I know is right here. Following her is the 20th president, Larry Lawrence. And our current president, Richard Logan. The next group of people that I would like to recognize are those who are the winners of the Sherwin T. Wine Award. Now, this award was the brainchild of Bert Steinberg, who at the age of 80-something became bar mitzvah, and he wanted to honor Sherwin. So he endowed this award. And when we were discussing who the first award would go to, there was only one name mentioned. And Marilyn, I'm not going to make you stand up, but Marilyn Rowans is here today, and we are so happy to be able to honor her. The second recipient was Bert Steinberg. I was the third. The fourth recipient, in those days, it was a secret, and they gave me the award in Boston. So nobody from my family was there, but I think Adam and Allison and Maya were there. Maya was like this big. The next were Ben and Lorraine Pivnik. The next award winner after that was Jane Goldhammer from Kol Shalom. Jane founded that congregation. She was such a force in our organization. We loved her dearly. The sixth recipient was Bonnie Cousins. The seventh, Sherry Delbert. And Deb Godden, this is one of the reasons why I'm so thrilled that you are here, so that you could be recognized as the eighth recipient of the Sherwin Wine. Lou Altman was the ninth. Esther and Ron Milan were the 10th. The 11th was Ruth Duskin Feldman, who was from Illinois and who was the editor of our journal for many, many years. The 12th was Dana and Rick Neymark. The 13th, Larry Lawrence. The 14th, Andrea Friedlander. And there will be more to come. I wanted to introduce you to the rabbis of our movement who are here this weekend. I want you to know that all these rabbis are donating their time. They came here at their own expense, and they registered for the conference. Their support goes so far beyond that. So if you are here, and I think most of you are, stand and let everybody see who you are. Susan Averbach. Adam Shalom, don't sit down. Greg Epstein. Jeffrey Falick. Eva Goldfinger. Denise Handlarski. Jody Kornfeld. Jeremy Kreidel. Who would have thunk it would take this long to name the rabbis who are here? Sivan Malkin Moss from Israel. Who was here? Frank Tamburello. Joyce Winter. And Sema Kure.
And Miriam Jerris.
Oh, it's written down there. But Marlene, what do you call me? Marlene Cohen. What do you call me? That's it. I would like to recognize the students in our rabbinic program who are here. Eva Cohen. Mary Raskin. And Jeffrey Chesnell. And I am very pleased to introduce at this time Terry Waslow, who is the Executive Director of the Congress of Secular Jewish Organizations, who is chosen to be with us this weekend, and we are so grateful, Terry. Thank you. So, in humanistic and secular Judaism, we have leaders. Madrichim, Madrichot, Wegweiser, however we want to call ourselves. And there are a bunch of us here today. So I will just recognize, if you want to raise your hand, Michelle Davis, Deborah Godden, Michael Preval, Sheila Malcolm, Mary Raskin, Marilyn Rowans, and Jeffrey Chesnall. Yes. BJ and Barry. Go ahead down to B. BJ Saul. Where's BJ? Barry Swan. Yeah, Barry reminded me. One quick, I'd said Deborah, I called her Deborah though. So I said Deb. We have a new program called the Officiant Program. And there are two students here, and I'd like to introduce them, Marla Davishoff and Terry Waslow. Very quick thank you to Paul Golan, our executive director. To the most amazing staff, Jennifer Grotsky and Kathy Shearhart. To our fearless leader, Richard Logan. And as I name these next people, please stand. You need to know who your committee for this weekend is. Mary Raskin, who chaired our committee. Marlene Cohen. Andrea Friedlander. Sheila Malcolm. Susan Ryan.
All women?
Do you see what we did? Just saying. Victoria Ratnaswamy. And our glue, our executive director, Paul Golan. Sheila, your name's here. Sheila Seymour. And I want to thank all of our generous and gracious sponsors. You can read about most of them in the program booklet. So thank you so much, everyone who's supported this incredible programming. I want to thank the Birmingham Temple and its staff and its members for being such gracious and wonderful hosts. This is a beautiful building. Please enjoy the new, beautiful bathrooms. Because
Only flush toilet paper, please.
Yes. Because 130 people going to the bathroom in those bathrooms would not be good. And certainly not the least is our board of directors. I would like to ask each of you who have ribbons that say board of directors to please stand, because the board of directors are your, yes, Barry, stand up. Board of directors, stand up. The board of directors are our hosts for this event. If you have questions, don't ask me, ask them, because they will know the answers. Anyways, I'm so excited about the weekend, and we're going to start it with a very, very special program. I'd like to turn the program over to Sheila Seymour, who is the chair of the Jews for a Secular Democracy. She's the best. Other.
She's a little shorter than I am. Thank you, Miriam. Tonight, we have been hearing about our founding and history from those who are instrumental in its creation. I would like to show you how our past informs what we are currently doing. The Society, in addition to all of the other things Miriam spoke about, has a history of speaking out on many social justice issues, including opposition to discrimination in the foster care system, birth control rules, and defunding of Planned Parenthood, and support for the Johnson Amendment retention, which means no candidate endorsement from the pulpit, enforcement of secular education, gender and women's equality, and the teaching of science in the public schools. Those are all resolutions available on the website, by the way. The striking characteristic of all of these issues have in common is that they are all based on a particular religious bias that its practitioners are attempting to inject into public policy debates. 2 years ago, the Society determined that more was needed to be done to counter this threat to our understanding of the constitutional separation of church and state. And as a minority, Jews are perhaps more sensitive than many to the potential danger of this threat. The history of Jews in the United States is a long one, beginning almost at the very beginning of Western European settlement. The foundational document of the American government set down in no uncertain terms that there would be no establishment of a state religion and no religious test for its elected representatives. The phrase, separation of church and state, while not found in the Constitution, was used by President Thomas Jefferson in 1802 when he wrote the opinion that the First Amendment's freedom of religion clause was designed to build, quote, a wall of separation between church and state, unquote. This allowed Jews to practice their religion in relative peace and in relative safety, conditions that had been infrequently met in many of their previous wanderings. This is a good news, bad news situation for us today. The good news is that Jews have successfully integrated into American society to a much greater extent than in previous generations. The bad news is that when there are setbacks, such as we have seen over the last several years, it comes as something of shock to many of us. In response to this changed atmosphere, 1 year ago this month, SHJ celebrated the public launch of Jews for a Secular Democracy, a pluralistic advocacy and education initiative that we hope will mobilize a wide diversity of Jews to defend Jefferson's noble phrase. We believe that Jews in particular must lead on this issue, as we have been both victims of regimes that were neither secular nor democracies. We have also been beneficiaries of governments that have been both secular and democratic. Unfortunately, today, we can identify only 11 countries out of about 167 on Earth considered both secular and fully democratic. And according to The Economist's 2018 Democracy Index, the United States is not among them. This is why we must do more. Fortunately, we are not alone in this fight. There are excellent organizations defending the First Amendment, and foremost among them is Americans United for the Separation of Church and State. Americans United was founded in 1948 as a coalition of religious, educational, and civic leaders in response to proposals to extend government aid to religious schools. Currently, Americans United is fighting for church-state separation on a wide variety of fronts, including churches and elections, schools, discrimination in the name of religion, LGBTQ rights, reproductive rights, government support of religion, and religious freedom. Sounds familiar, right? For their long and continuing defense of our constitutional protections against the intrusion of religion in public policy, the Society for Humanistic Judaism and Jews for a Secular Democracy is delighted to present its inaugural Constitutional Defender Award to a most deserving individual. Rachel Lazar, Executive Director of Americans United, was named to the post early last year, the first woman and first Jew to lead the group. She grew up in Chicago and most recently was Deputy Director for Reform Judaism's Religious Action Center. She is an attorney and longtime advocate on reproductive freedom and LGBTQ equality. According to the Americans United Board Chair, quote, "We were looking for a leader who is up to the fight, understands the issues, and has a real fire in the belly to carry on the banner of separation," unquote. Rachel, we present this award with great appreciation for what you have already accomplished and look forward to standing with you in this coming fight.
So thank you, Sheila, and thank you all so much for this award. I feel like there are so many people I'm meeting right now in person. I'm going to try and name some of them. Richard, who it was lovely to email with before. Paul Golan, finally in person. Let's see, Elise, loved hearing you. Rabbi Jerris? Right here. Okay, very good. And really all of you, I'm deeply appreciative to the Society for Humanistic Judaism for existing and for inviting me to be with you all today. And so honored to receive this award as the first Jewish non-Christian, actually president of this 72-year-old organization called Americans United for Separation of Church and State. We can talk later about church in that name. And I want to tell you that it's also a special honor to be with you all today and to receive this award because I have a lot of family members who identify as Jewish and don't believe in God. So when I received the invitation, I said to Paul right away and Richard, you all are family, I'm coming. Let me tell you just one more reason why it's so special to be with you all. As I travel around the country and I meet with the supporters of Americans United, I have noticed two things about our most dedicated supporters. One group of them tends to fall into the category of non-theist. And another group of them tends to fall into the category of having a strong religious identity. Of any sort, really. Religious minorities and Christians, a strong religious identity. They get why it's important to be able to have your own set of beliefs. You all are doubly qualified to love us. Pretty cool. And we love you back. And in fact, since my first day at Americans United, I have been busy explaining, even to some of our own folks, that these two seemingly disparate groups often overlap when it comes to Jews. So once again, thank you so much for the honor of giving me my first award as president of Americans United. I can't wait to display it in my office and to explain to anyone who doesn't know who the humanistic Jews are. I'm going to tell them. And I look forward to sharing more soon. Thank you.
So, it is 7:15. We begin begin the Shabbat service at 7:30. You are free to run to any of the bathrooms. I would recommend that you go find a place to sit in what we call our meeting room, sanctuary meeting room, because people are very excited to hear Rachel speak tonight. So thank you so much for helping us start the program.